Bret Stephens, a New York Times columnist, recently published a piece about those Republicans titled, "Done with Never Trump." Never Trumpers are Republicans who vow to oppose Trump at every turn to protect democracy and the true conservative values of the Republican Party. One of the most prominent voices, of course, of that coalition is former Congresswoman Liz Cheney, who endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris. Stephens argues that it's time for folks like her to give up the resistance and give Trump a chance. As a self-identified never-Trumper, he admitted Trump is a dangerous person from a conservative view, but he argues the movement overreacted, especially about January 6th. Stephens writes that Trump's election lies and the Capitol attack led him to vote for Kamala Harris. But he said democracy means letting ordinary people, not elites, decide how important January 6th is. And apparently, most don't see it as a big deal. Let's just stop here for a second. The problem with January 6th, in my opinion, is not solely the attack on our Capitol. It's also Trump's incendiary rhetoric and unfounded claims of a stolen election in the lead up to the attack. Yes, I guess him telling the rioters to fight like hell really didn't help either. But what he normalized then and what he continues to normalize now is the right for he and his party to declare any and every election they lose as rigged just because they do not have the courage to pay a politician's debt, which in this country means saying you lose when you lose. So I think it is fair to say calling January 6th an overreaction ignores the green light that Donald Trump and his enablers gave to this anti-democratic force, especially now that he and those very same enablers are returning to power. Stephens also assumes that despite nearly a decade in politics, there's a chance that Donald Trump has changed. Yeah, changed. As Rick Wilson responded, men in their late 70s do not suddenly have moral awakenings. Trump hasn't become more disciplined or statesmanlike. If anything, he's doubling down. Which brings us to the revenge tour that Trump has promised and seems to have already kicked off. In just the past few weeks, ABC settled a lawsuit with Trump for $15 million, which many believe will embolden Trump to sue more outlets when they challenge him. Trump's suing a local Iowa newspaper over polling results he didn't like during the election. And in regards to never-Trumpers like Liz Cheney, Trump and Republicans want the FBI to look into her for investigating the January 6th attack in Congress. If this is what Trump will do before he returns to the White House, what does next month even look like? We have elections for Speaker, the election certification, the inauguration, and, of course, the Senate confirmation hearings for Trump's cabinet, something Stephens also wrote about. He wants never-Trumpers to give Trump's cabinet picks a chance. He says they should stop comparing Trump to dictators and quit worrying about democracy falling apart. That is easier said than done, given who Trump has nominated. Well, it's not a cabinet position. Trump wants Kash Patel to run the FBI, the same man who said this to Steve Bannon.
We're going to come after the people in the media who lied about American citizens, who helped Joe Biden rig presidential elections.
Words that must be music to a wannabe dictator's ears. We should just overlook that, especially when we know Trump embraces authoritarian rulers who mock democracies. While he might claim to be joking, Trump mocks our own democracy all the time. He suggests things that violate our Constitution, like not being able to run for a third term unless Republicans do something. He also wants to take away birthright citizenship, something that is in the Constitution. This is not a time to soften oversight and criticism of Trump. He's about to be the leader of the free world again after 4 years of researching how to pull off what he couldn't do the first time. And there are some Democrats already making the case for befriending MAGA, like Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman on ABC Today.
Well, it's like I've been warning people, like, you got to chill out, you know, like the constant, freak out. It's not helpful. So, pack a lunch, pace yourself, because he hasn't even taken office yet.
You met with Kash Patel, I believe, right?
Yesterday, well, yes.
He's talked about going after Trump's enemies.
Yeah, and we've had conversations, but we had all of these interviews were all off the record, and those things. So I'm not going to go into detail, but he absolutely is that that's never going to happen.
Look, democracies don't just collapse suddenly overnight. They erode slowly with the help of polite excuses and shrugs and giving, as we just saw there by John Fetterman, good faith arguments to those who have not earned it.